Chapter 6. The gunshot filled Claire's head as if nothing else existed. She couldn't see anything in the darkness beyond vague shadows wrestling on the floor. She didn't want to switch on the light. Given this was Michelle's room, she'd be familiar with it, and James not, which would hopefully give her an advantage. It did sound as if they were both still alive. On the other hand, what if Michelle was getting the worst of it? Claire whipped out her phone and switched on its torch. The beam revealed Michelle pinned beneath James, her face contorted with effort. The gun was just beyond the reach of both of them. James had his forearm across Michelle's throat. His face was twisted with malevolence. "You stupid bitch," he snarled, pushing harder. Michelle's face was dark red. She clawed wildly at his arm, kicked with her feet. She was getting nowhere. Claire lunged for the hair on the dresser and swung. The satisfying crack of metal against skull sent James sideways, releasing Michelle from his grip. "Get the gun," she gasped. Claire scrambled across the floor, fingers closing around the weapon. It was cold. She'd never held a gun before. It was heavier than she expected. "Downstairs," Michelle managed, her voice hoarse. Lucinda and Ellie. She staggered to her feet, took the gun from Claire's shaking hands. "He's not moving, and we need to check on them. That scream." Claire, still clutching the bronze hair, raced down the stairs. Michelle stumbled along behind. The kitchen was a disaster. Broken glass, an overturned chair, the kettle whistling frantically on the stove. But no Lucinda. No Ellie. "Lucinda?" Claire yelled. A muffled sound came from the pantry. Michelle pulled back the bolt and yanked open the door to find Lucinda inside, a bleeding gash across her forehead. Ellie huddled behind her. "What happened?" Claire demanded, helping Lucinda out. "He came," Lucinda said, swaying slightly. "Another man, said he was James's friend, was waiting for him, followed us here, came to check what was taking so long." "He had a knife," Ellie said. "He said if James didn't come down immediately, he'd go up. He wanted me to call him, but I wouldn't. Lucinda tried to stop him going upstairs. I got him with this thing I found in the fireplace, but I lost my balance and fell into Ellie, and he managed to shove us in here and bolt the door." "Where is he now?" Michelle asked. "Garden," Lucinda replied. "We heard him run out of the back door." Claire rushed to the kitchen window. In the glow of the security light, she could see a figure clutching his head moving unsteadily through the garden, aiming for the gate. "We need to go," Michelle said. "All of us. James will wake up soon, and his friend will, no doubt, be back." "Go where?" Claire asked. "The cottage?" Michelle nodded. "They don't know about it." Claire turned to Ellie. "Will you come with us? Away from him?" Ellie looked from Claire to Michelle, and then to Lucinda, and she smiled. "Yes, please," she said. "First, I want to get my passport back from James. He insisted on holding it." "We'll come up with you," Michelle said, "just in case he's coming round." And they all climbed back upstairs. Ellie ran over to James and searched his pockets. She found her passport and held it up with a grin. Lucinda, meanwhile, pressed her fingers to the side of his neck. She turned to Michelle. "I'm sorry, love, but your brother's dead." Shell gasped and covered her mouth with her hand. "Dead!" She turned to Claire, who held her arms out, but Shell didn't move. She merely stared at her friend. "It will have been me with the hair," Claire said. "No, it was me with the gun." "Do you want me to find out what it was?" Lucinda asked, rolling up her sleeves. "No, we'll consider it a combined effort," Claire stated. Lucinda shrugged. "Okay, what will we do with him? Garden? Cellar? Something else?" Well, she'd fit it in easily. Claire turned to look at Ellie, afraid she might be hysterical, or that she might have run away, only to find her eager to help, too. The stairs creaked and groaned as they carried him down 2 flights into the cellar. Claire and Shell went backwards, gripping his shoulders, while Lucinda and Ellie held his legs. It was very awkward. Claire was tempted to say, "Oh, for heaven's sake, let's just drag him," but she was trying to be respectful. After all, it was Shell's brother. The air grew colder with each step. She smelt damp stone, mildew, and something metallic. Every creak of wood seemed so loud, as if it might echo through the house and out into the street, as if the whole city might hear it and instantly know what they were up to. Michelle gestured with her head to the far corner. "The ground's softer over there." Claire wondered how she knew that, but she wasn't going to ask. The floor was rough-packed earth under flagstones. After placing James nearby, Claire knelt to touch it. It was cold and gritty, Of course it was. Michelle said, "I'll be back in a minute." She left the cellar and returned shortly, dragging a sack behind her that left a faint white trail on the stairs. "Lime," she explained. "I keep it for the mortar, safer than cement in these old walls." "What will that do?" Ellie asked. "According to all the best crime novels, it should prevent the smell of rotting flesh pervading the house." Her tone was so matter-of-fact, Claire knew Michelle was back to herself now. The momentary shock at the death of her brother was done. Shell was back to feeling not very much about anything. That was good. She would be okay. The crowbar squealed as Lucinda levered up the first flagstone. Claire took the spade and struck down. It didn't sink in easily. She put her foot on its shoulder and pushed it down with all her weight. It was hard work, but they all took turns, so were able to rest in between. Claire had no idea how long they laboured in the cellar, but eventually, the hole was deep enough that shadows swallowed its bottom. Together, they lowered the body in to its final resting place. He was heavy. He settled awkwardly, limbs untidy. Claire made herself straighten them out. Should we say something?" she asked. "After all, we are burying him." "Are you kidding?" Ellie asked, her voice raised to a squeak. "Are you kidding me?" "Well, you know." A few words, Lucinda laughed. The sound cracked against the ceiling and echoed around the cellar. "Say a few words," she repeated. "Say a few words." The laugh went on. "Well," Claire tried again. "Give it up, Claire," Michelle said. She had a wide grin on her face. Had they all gone mad? Was she the only one who hadn't gone mad? Or was she the only one who had? Michelle slit the sack with a knife. Fine powder burst out, stinging Claire's nose and throat. Shell tipped the sack, sending clouds of white dust spilling into the grave. Lucinda grabbed the spade and used it to scatter more of it until the body was completely veiled as if buried in snow. Eagerly, they shoveled the earth back and tamped down the surface with their feet. They replaced the flagstones until the cellar floor looked just as it had before. Well, nearly as it had before. They stacked boxes of tools and old paint tins on top. Claire sank onto the bottom step. Her hands were blistered and felt as if grit had become ingrained in them. Lime dust clung to her hair, her clothes, her throat. She swallowed hard, but the taste remained. Every now and then, one of the others said, a few words, and dissolved into laughter again. Now the job was done. Claire could see it herself. A few words. What? Like, may we rest in peace, now you're dead and buried? A few words like that? A laugh climbed up inside her and burst out of her mouth. A few words. She rocked back and forwards. A few words. And they were standing in a circle, their arms across the next one's shoulders. They laughed and cried and laughed. Then, as if that marked a complete break between the last phase and the next, they quieted and filed back up the steps to the world above. Claire's knees trembled with the climb, her palms burning where the spade had rubbed the skin raw. When she pushed open the cellar door, the kitchen light hit her eyes painfully for a moment, until she adjusted to it. In the kitchen, everything was as it had been. It was all clean tiles, shiny kettle, Michelle's neat stack of cups by the sink. The air smelled of tea and washing powder. And, just like that, they'd returned to normal life. Well, except for some shards of glass and a few things out of place. They wouldn't take long to sort. She stood there a moment, frozen in the doorway, before stepping onto the tiles. Her boots left a faint scatter of dirt. Lucinda and Ellie followed her. Michelle came last and closed the cellar door with deliberate care, pushing the bolt home as though that could hold down what lay beneath. They washed their hands and faces in turn at the sink, by which time the broken glass was cleared up and a bit of tidying done. Michelle left the room and came back with a cut crystal decanter of brandy and 4 matching glasses. She poured a hefty measure into each. They sat around the table, saluted each other, and drank. Suddenly, Lucinda jumped up. "I've got a great idea," she shouted. "Michelle, do you have a razor blade?" "A razor blade?" Uneasiness gripped Claire, but Shell had already gone off to find one. She came back with a pack of blades and the bottle of surgical spirit that Lucinda had also asked for. Lucinda unscrewed the top and sloshed the spirit over a blade, then tipped some onto her own wrist. "No infections," she said. Then she drew the blade across her skin and passed it to Ellie. Ellie copied her, dousing first with spirit before cutting. Michelle did the same, laughing as she sliced beneath an old familiar scar. Finally, the blade reached Claire. She didn't hesitate. She poured alcohol over it, wetted her wrist, and sliced with the blade, also under an old familiar scar. At least this time, she didn't expect to get infected and end up in hospital for weeks. One after another they stood, pressing bloody wrists together, crossing and recrossing until every combination was made. Lucinda slopped more brandy around and raised her glass. "We're the Blood Sisters now," she yelled. "To the Blood Sisters!" Michelle shouted. She winked at Claire. Claire winked back. After another large brandy, Claire coughed. She didn't want to break the celebratory mood, but some loose ends still needed sorting. "Sorry about this, but we do need to talk about James's friend." "He did see all of us," Ellie said, nodding. "That can't be good. Lucinda hit him pretty hard with that poker, though. He was bleeding a lot. But maybe not hard enough, given he walked away. He'll go to hospital or police, or both. He'll need medical attention for that head wound, I should think," Lucinda said. "I hit him as hard as I could." Claire straightened up. "The hospital. Our hospital. If he turns up there." She and Lucinda exchanged glances. "If he shows up in A&E with a head injury, we can track him through the system. We have access to all the admission records." "Then what?" "We can find out where he lives." "Then what?" "Well," Lucinda hesitated. She shot a glance at Claire again. "We can deal with that when the time comes." Claire nodded. "With any luck, he might die on his own." Shell laughed, a humorless crack of noise that made Claire flinch. "Oh my, how you've changed. Time was you wouldn't even step on a spider." "I still wouldn't step on a spider. Spiders don't do me any harm." Shell backed away, hands up in mock surrender. "James's car," Ellie suddenly remembered. "It's parked down the street. Or it was, near the cafe." The four women exchanged alarmed glances. "I've got the keys from his pockets when we searched him. Actually, a couple of bunches of keys. One of them must be for his car. A bit later, I'll drive it somewhere distant," Lucinda offered. "Perhaps leave it in long-term parking at the train station." "His phone," Michelle said. "Did anyone see his phone?" "Nope. There were keys and a wallet, but nothing else." "Maybe he left it in his car," Claire suggested. "Lucinda, when you move it, search it first. We'll need to dispose of the phone separately, but there might be other stuff in there." "I'll help," Ellie said. "I'll go with you, Lucy." Claire only managed 3 hours of fitful sleep before her alarm dragged her back to consciousness. Her phone displayed a message sent silently. "Car dealt with. Phone found. Car too nice to dump. Discussing options. See you later. I'll be heading into work a bit later. See you there. Execs." Claire made herself a strong coffee. Everything felt surreal. The house was so quiet. Yesterday, she'd been an ordinary medical secretary. Today, she was part of a murder cover-up. The strangest thing was how little regret she felt. James had deserved what he got. With a jolt, she realized this wasn't the first time she was part of a murder cover-up. Not by a long chalk. And yet, it was as if it was the first time again. Would this never get old? She was horrified to find a big grin on her face. At the hospital, Claire kept her head down, nodding politely to colleagues as she made her way to her desk. Nobody seemed to notice anything different about her. How was that even possible? Once logged into the system, she began scanning the overnight admission records. Almost immediately she found it. Male, 42, severe head trauma, possible skull fracture. Admitted at 3:17 a.m. Currently in neurology, room 412. James's friend had survived and was 4 floors above her. Claire checked the patient's details. Daniel Ganston. The admission notes mentioned blunt force trauma consistent with assault. He'd told the doctors he'd been mugged. So he'd told a lie about how he'd been injured. Definitely dodgy. She pulled up his medical record and found even more lies. What was going on? Daniel Ganston wasn't just James's friend. He was listed as an undercover police detective. Except he couldn't be. If he truly was, he would not have happily said so, where it was there for anyone to see in his records. She knew enough about hospital protocols to know that undercover officers had special markers in their files, visible only to certain staff. This was too obvious, too convenient, like he'd added it himself for some reason. So she knew he wasn't what he was trying to say he was. But what was he, then? And what did he have to do with James? Claire sent a quick text to the others. Found him. In hospital. Claims to be police. Am investigating. During her lunch break, she headed up to the 4th floor. With her hospital badge and a clipboard in front of her, like a shield, she strode into room 412. The man in the bed looked worse than she'd expected. His head was heavily bandaged, one eye horribly swollen closed, an IV dripped into his arm. Monitoring equipment beeped softly beside him. She could see the effort it took for him to open the other eye, and then it glared at her. "They've already done all this," he mumbled. "Just being thorough," Claire replied, making a show of checking her clipboard. "You know what it's like in hospital. You always have to repeat yourself. Repeatedly." She tried to smile engagingly, but wasn't convinced she'd won him over. "Can you confirm you were admitted for a head injury following a mugging?" "That's right," he said, after only a slight hesitation. "Still lying, then. And your family's been contacted? Your emergency contact?" "No family," he said. "Just colleagues." "At the police department?" Claire couldn't have been more casual, but she watched him all the while. And, sure enough, something shifted in his expression. "How did you know that?" "It's in your records, Detective Ganston. Undercover police officer. Standard information." Except she knew it wasn't. She gestured vaguely at her clipboard. "Have your colleagues been notified?" "Not yet," he said slowly. "Unconscious." "You must have had a rough time. I'll make sure the nursing staff know you need to contact your department. Is there anyone specific who should be informed about your condition?" "Partner," he said after a moment. "Harlow." Claire made a note. "I'll see she's notified." "He," Ganston corrected. "James Harlow." Claire nearly dropped her clipboard. Was he trying to make out that James was a police detective too? She struggled to keep her expression neutral. "Of course. I'll make sure he's informed." As she pretended to make notes, Claire assessed his condition. The head injury seemed severe. Surely he'd need days of observation. His motor function seemed impaired. He could barely lift his hand when he tried to gesticulate. One leg was elevated slightly, suggesting additional injuries. He was having difficulty staying conscious. He wouldn't be getting out of bed easily, much less chasing after her if she revealed her hand. Claire moved to close the door to his room, then returned to his bedside. "Mr. Ganston," she said, "or whatever your name really is, I know it was you at the house last night. I know you weren't mugged. I know you're not a police officer." His good eye widened, and he tried to reach for the call button, but Claire moved it beyond his grasp. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said, "but I need the truth. Who are you, and what was your relationship with James?" His face twisted with pain. Or was it hatred? "You're one of them," he hissed. "What are you talking about?" "James's trafficking operation." A chill enveloped her. "Trafficking." Her voice was higher than she liked. "But, trafficking. Women, girls, my sister," he said. His voice wobbled, and he stopped, took a deep breath, and carried on. "Disappeared 6 months ago. Police said she probably ran off with a boyfriend, but Melissa wouldn't do that." Claire sat down slowly in the chair next to his bed. In all her lurid scenarios, this was one that hadn't crossed her mind. "You think James trafficked your sister?" "I know he did. I've been tracking him for months, pretending to be interested in his merchandise." He grimaced at the words. "He finally trusted me enough to invite me along last night. Said he had new girls to show me. Said I could have my pick." Claire tried to get her head around this. James had been involved in human trafficking. And he'd brought this man to Michelle's house because he'd thought he could sell Claire and his sister too. "You thought we were for sale?" "Not you. The merch wouldn't be wandering about in cafes and then walking down the street together. You'd have to be keeping them somewhere else. I thought it was odd, though, when he didn't answer my text, so I followed you and waited. Then I had to come in and see where he was." "You thought we were part of it," she said. "You think we're working with James. Aren't you?" His tone was accusatory, but his gaze wavered. "No, God, no," Claire said. "We're not traffickers. We're—" She hesitated. How much to reveal? James is Michelle's brother, but she hadn't seen him in years. He was trying to get money from her. "I saw the blonde girl. She looked terrified. I assumed she was a new one. We thought she was his girlfriend. He was obviously controlling her. He had her passport." Claire peered at him. They'd all been under the wrong impression of each other, if he could be believed. But there was something about him, something she wanted to trust. Lucinda only hit you because she thought you were working with James. We were protecting ourselves. Daniel studied her face. Where's James now? Where's the blonde girl? Claire chose her words carefully. Ellie is safe. She's with friends now, away from James. And James? Claire held his gaze. He won't be trafficking anyone again. Ever. You killed him? Not on purpose. Not exactly. He attacked Michelle. We defended ourselves. Claire watched his reaction closely, wondering what he would do with that information. Everything hung in the balance for him now. If she thought he would betray them, she was certain that she could suffocate him with a pillow easily enough in his present state. Better to decide about him now, and deal with him now, than have any doubts and let him become a threat to them in future. He was silent for a long moment, the only sound the steady beep of his heart monitor. Finally he said, My sister. Did James mention a Melissa Ganston? Claire shook her head. I'm sorry, no. But we might be able to help you find her. How? James's phone, his contacts. There might be information there. You have his phone? We have access to his things, Claire said carefully. If he was trafficking women, there must be records somewhere. Contacts, locations. It would be a good thing to do, to find them, set them free. An excellent project for the Blood Sisters. She knew the others would be keen. It was right up their alley, if a bit more grandiose than they might have chosen for a starter mission. Why would you help me? Because we want the same thing, Claire said. We want to stop people like James, and because we need to know you won't tell anyone about last night. He snorted, and suddenly seemed more energized. Tell them what? That I got my head bashed in while pretending to be a sex trafficker? That I was investigating without authority? That I suspect a group of women killed the only lead to my sister? He shook his head slightly, then winced at the movement. No one would believe me anyway, especially as I've already lied about a mugging. They're just looking for another way to get rid of me. So we have a deal? We help you look for Melissa, and you forget what you saw. Claire stopped. Wait, what do you mean? They want another way to get rid of you? They tried locking me up for a murder I didn't commit not long ago. They'd do anything to get rid of me. They're fed up with me pestering them about my sister. Claire knew, without asking, that he was the one blamed for Cockwombledoc's death. He must be. Life was weird. No doubt about it. At least it made her certain that he'd not betray the Blood Sisters. So, we have a deal? She repeated. Not quite, he said, his voice stronger now. I want in. Whatever you find out about James's operation, I want to know, and I want to help shut it down. Claire considered this. Having a man on the scene could be useful in some scenarios. Now she knew who he was. She was certain they could trust him. I need to discuss it with the others, she finally said. Fair enough, but don't take too long. People like James don't operate alone. There will be others wondering where he is. The implication sent a chill down Claire's spine. She hadn't considered that James might have partners who would come looking for him. I'll be back tomorrow, she promised, standing to leave. Daniel had slumped back after his little burst of life, as if all the energy had drained from him. One more thing, Daniel called as she reached the door. If you're going through James's things, look for a silver charm bracelet with a dolphin. Melissa never took it off. If you find it, I'll bring it to you. Claire finished for him, as his voice trailed off with exhaustion. He seemed to be trying to pick up his phone. She walked back towards the bed, just in time to stop it falling to the floor. She handed it to him, but he pushed it towards her. Take, he gasped. Take phone, 03289. Take, Melissa. And he lapsed into unconsciousness. Claire dropped it into her bag and pressed his call bell. When she heard a nurse hurrying along to his room, she left. As she walked back to her office, Claire tried to grapple with what she knew now. James had been trafficking women. The implications were horrifying. What if there were women being held somewhere right now, waiting for James to return? What if someone else in his network came looking for him? She sent a text to the Blood Sisters group chat, emergency meeting tonight, our place, 8 p.m. Found out what James was really doing. We have a bigger problem than we thought. Michelle replied immediately. What problem? Claire's fingers hovered over her phone. How could she explain this in a text? About Shell's brother. Finally, she typed, James was trafficking women, and he wasn't working alone. As she sent the message, her phone rang, the hospital reception. Claire? There's a Detective Reynolds here in connection with a patient. His colleague, a Daniel Ganston. I've told him where he is, but it's you he wants to see. Claire stilled. Why does he want to see me? He didn't say, just showed his badge and asked to speak with whoever accessed Ganston's file most recently. The system shows that was you. That didn't sound good. Tell him I'll be right there. She ended the call and texted the group, police at hospital asking about Ganston. Don't know if real police or James's associates. Going to stall. If you don't hear from me in an hour, assume the worst. As she gathered her courage to face the detective, her phone buzzed with Lucinda's reply. If they take you, we'll find you. Blood sisters, stick together.